Hey everyone, Luke here. Now, we finally made it to chapter 200 of Mission Yozakura Family. Yes, we're finally there. 200, 4 years, and it doesn't seem like we're ending anytime soon, but it does seem like we might wrap up in the next couple of years, which I'm fine with, I'm content with, because after this I've got 100 girlfriends that I want to review. Now with that series, not sure what I'm going to do about the thumbnails. Hopefully, fingers crossed, they won't get copyright straight or whatever, but been doing it so far so good, and 100 Girlfriends is a Shueisha series, so I think I'll be able to get away with what I'm doing now with the Michio Sakura Promise Neverland Dr. Stone thumbnails. Which, speaking of Dr. Stone, that leads me into my second point. Yes, I am aware that we're getting 3 new Dr. Stone chapters. We're getting them starting this week, so we're pretty much getting them throughout the whole of November. So it's, and they say, like, even though they say it's a spin-off, it's a continuation. So it's basically chapters 234, 35, and 36 of the manga, which I'm perfectly fine with. Me, Party Jams, and Vex, we are going to be talking about that, as well as season 3 of Dr. Stone in a separate video, as well as I'll be doing my reviews of the chapters. So that's stuff you've got to look forward to. So it's so nice that we're finally getting some more manga Dr. Stone content. But that's for later. Without further ado, let's dive right into the Mission Yozakura chapter. Alright, so this is chapter 200, titled True Spring Blooming. Basically, the Yozakura family is equivalent to the Bonkai, essentially. So it literally starts off from the beginning of the from the end of the last chapter, starts off from the beginning of this chapter, where Tao's activated his true spring blooming. We have a number of the family members just being like, okay, what is this? And then we have Ryu clarifying, like, okay, Tao is as white as a ghost, now. So his whole body is just encased in this white colouring. As Hiyofumi and Alpha are just like stunned by it. But I love Hiyofumi's discussion of it. Like, yeah, it looks like Papa's just dumped white paint on himself. Yeah, kind of like when you go through a door and there's like a paint can bucket over the door, and it's just like, oh, I've got white paint over me. So that's kind of what she's going for there. And Keigo's just like, oh, wait. This is something we actually do know about. Is it what I think it is? And we have Koichiro going like, ah, I see, Tao. So this is your true spring blooming, which begs the question. Now this is going to be interesting. What are the true spring bloomings of the other Yozakura siblings? Because we find out what the overall aspect of the true spring blooming is in this chapter. So it begs the question of, like, what is it going to be for Fruitsmell, for Keigo? Koichiro's is the one I'm most interested in, because of how his ability is basically anything that his void comes in contact with is shredded out of existence. So what would be the true spring blooming to that? That is something I'm very interested in seeing. So we have Alex going on and saying the blooming is a power that the Yozakura share. Tao's hardening is exactly what it sounds like, where his body obviously hardens up, becomes rock hard skin. But this, I've never seen this before. I can't tell what kind of power this is. So it's quite interesting that not only does Ryu have pretty much no information on Tao, except for some bogus made-up stuff, but the fact that he's never seen anything like this blooming before is something that I feel like he's going to be mega fascinated through. Once we get through this whole situation with him, he's probably going to be mega fascinated finding out what more about it. And again, like I said, like, does this mean that that Ai has a true spring blooming? Is that actually going to be a thing? Because we know she has a blooming, and we know, like, the members of Tampopo also technically have artificial bloomings, but can they access the true spring blooming via them? That's something that I feel would need to be addressed in the series moving forward. And also as well, what Alpha and Hiyofumi's true spring blooming is going to be. That'll be something that is something that we could debate till the cows come home, before we actually even know what their bloomings actually are. I mean, with 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 uh, with Futaba, like her blooming basically is just like negate attack from Yu-Gi-Oh. So she's like use her magnetic abilities to negate the attack. But I reckon I reckon what her true spring blooming will be something like Magic Cylinder, where in Yu-Gi-Oh, whenever you activate Magic Cylinder, the attack gets negated from you, and then it just fires right back at your opponent and does the damage that was going to be done to you. So I reckon that will be something that Futaba's true spring blooming will be. So like she can nullify it with her magnetus ability, but then her true spring blooming, whatever that is, because it's confirmed in this chapter that the true spring bloomers do have different names. So like how I debated last week whether or not the true spring blooming was going to be like the Bonkai and have a different name. Like how Hisugaya has Hyorimura and Daigo and Hyorimura. It's confirmed here that yes, they do have different names. So whatever the equivalent, whatever the upgrade to magnesium is going to be, like just fire it back at your opponent, like that's something that I would want to find out if that's actually going to be the case for Futaba's true spring blooming. But anyway, continuing on, we have just this overwhelming geyser of energy just spewing out as a tree is just spouting up. So kind of again keeping with the theme of the Yozakura family being like a tree, as Ryu was going on and saying, I can say it's something extraordinary, and I'm actually nervous. How many decades has it been since that happened? So like this is again, the fact that Ryu's saying this shows that, like, oh my god, this is a big deal, because he hardly gets phased in the series. In fact, he's the one that's phasing other people, so for the tables to be turned on him and being like, yeah, this is something I'm kind of not used to. At this point, and I'm not sure how to feel about this. Is it going to be is it going to be like what it was back then? So yeah, it's very, very nerve-wracking for me, and I just love that when characters to themselves are like admitting like, yeah, this is something beyond my comprehension, but I'm in this situation. I have to deal with it. He goes on and says, if I were being extremely logic, I wouldn't challenge him head on, but I can't afford to be logical right now. No, you can't afford to be logical, because you're about to get some good old-fashioned Yozakura ass whooping Ryu. As we get a flashback here where we actually have another confirmation of the kind of relationship that Takumi and Ryu actually had, which makes it even more of a tragedy, because it kind of gives more of an insight into what Ryu's mindset is as we move forward with the chapter. As he goes on and says, Takumi, you should have told them what they wanted to know about me. My home address, my film abilities, dozens of things that they would have loved to hear. And Takumi's just like, no, I'm not thinking about that. I'm not going to sell out the man who fell for a nutcase like me. So basically confirming that Ryu and Takumi were basically a couple at that point. Yeah. So congratulations, Yozakura, giving us an official gay couple in the series, and I do like that. Like Takumi was just like, yeah, Ryu has loved me despite what I'm like. He's loved me for who I am, so I'm not gonna do that to him. Like, he's the guy that's chosen to love me above everyone else in the world, so I have to return the favor, and I have to do something that shows that, yeah, I love you just like how you love me, and by not selling you out to these people, even though it's effectively going to cost his life. So this, again, like I said, gives much more depth to Ryu as a character, because even though he's saying, like, it's been saying for the past few chapters, like, I'm a fraud, I'm not a father, I think deep down what he means is, like, he probably wanted to raise Katana with Takumi and them actually being co-parents to Katana, but the fact that because of him, Takumi's no longer there to have that partnership that they both obviously wanted. That's what's probably making him think, I'm a fraud, I don't deserve this, because I failed not only to protect Katana, who I love as a daughter, but also protect her father, who I love on a romantic level, and who love me on a romantic level. So that again gives a much more depth to Ryu's character, and just helps to understand like where he's actually come from, where his mindset is, because of the fact that he feels like he basically destroyed this family and he's not worthy of it, even though everyone has been saying, no, you are worthy of it, you have proven your worth. Takumi goes on and says, sorry I spent so long pretending not to notice for all this time. I'm sorry. Okay, so it was kind of like, so it's kind of one-sided, but Takumi finally came to accept it in his dying moments. Or no, sorry, I spent so long pretending not. No, he did. So he did notice, but maybe Takumi felt like they couldn't be together because of their different. I still want to. I'm fascinated now. I'm really fascinated of like why Takumi pretending not to notice, even though even though it was kind of like, look, this guy loves me for who I am. I might as well be with him. So maybe he felt like because of Ryu's job and his profession, he couldn't reciprocate the feelings because he knew how dangerous it was. Maybe that's the reason he pretended not to notice it. But at the end of the day, it didn't matter in the end, and it is quite sad in that regard. Like, this relationship, even though it was mutual, despite Takumi's pretending not to love it, it could not last, and it ended in tragedy with Takumi sacrificing himself, not just to protect Ryu and his life and health, but also protect his daughter as well. And as he dies and asks Ryu to take care of Katana, this is when Ryu was just probably thinking like, if I wasn't here, Takumi would still be alive, Katana would still have a father, so it's all my fault. If I hadn't have clung to those stupid feelings, like he says right here, if I hadn't clung to those stupid feelings, Takumi never would have died, Katana never would have been alone, my love, my ego doomed all my loved ones. So, my God, Ryu, making me feel this level of emotion for your character. I feel like this might actually be the best moment of the year so far. Like Ryu and Takumi's tragic past, and what actually led to this moment and this whole combination of this wedding arc. So he goes on and says, my love, my ego doomed all my loved ones. That's why I refuse to back it down. All colour drained from him, leaving him so Ryu's actually writing down about the true spring blooming right now, and going, all colour drained from him, leaving him a pale white. Faint whispers of pale crimson drifted around his form. So I guess the exuberant energy that's coming around, that's actually crimson red. So what's coming around Tyler. So very interesting that Ryu's actually observing that, as he goes on and says, excitement courses through me, wrapped in an intense intellect curiosity. Sorry that I have to assume him because of the fact that Ryu's exuding his energy whilst also going for the internal monologue, so it's kind of hard to see the panels. Excitement caused through me, wrapped in intense intel curiosity. No blades, no bullets, or even missiles can pierce my flesh. No man is ever able to defeat this technique. Okay, so Ryu's basically going through his mind of being like, yeah, no one's been able to defeat this technique, and no one's been able to pierce my my flesh with this when I've got this technique activated. And I'm going to use it now on Tayo. It's your turn to taste the slash that can crush diamonds. So this gives an actual power level for Ryu, which it does seem like Death Battle, if they ever decide to do a Death Battle with Mission Yozakura family, are going to be using these stats to be like, okay, what are Tao's stats? What can he go against? Well, he's gone against Ryu's June Shitai reprinted grudges, which he says is powerful enough to crush diamonds, and Tao's basically like what we see in the next panel, basically just stops it with one hand. So Tao basically doing like the Aizen thing there, except he's using a hand when Aizen used a finger. So that gives an indication for how powerful the true spring booming actually is. So as Tao has stopped Ryu's attack, he goes on and says, I didn't feel any resistance at all. There's no pain either. It's like my hand was warped in soft cotton. So it was kind of like Ryu was going to use the strike that could crush steel, and literally Tao just had to do like boom. It's like and Ryu just felt like cotton just going and wrapping around it. It's just like, what's actually happening here? As Futaba goes on and says, that's not Ikea, what is it? As we have a flashback, another flashback, because this show's just abundant of flashbacks, basically finding out what Ryu and Takumi's true relationship actually was, and now actually finding out what true spring blooming actually is. So we have the flashback when Tao is going over the message that Momo left to him, as he say, every blooming has the room to be perfected. So basically, I would say blooming is like 50%, whereas true spring blooming is like 100%. Momo says, okay, let's take your hardening for example. It's useful for both offenses and defenses, which is apt, hardening, making your skin hard rock so that you can block attacks but also deliver powerful punches. Pretty standard ability in shonen, but its strengths also come with weaknesses, and it's nice that we actually get to see the actual weaknesses to some of these bloomings as well, because up to this point we've only really been focusing on like the strengths and how it's used to defeat bad guys, but we never really focus on the actual weaknesses and what they have to do to overcome it. Like for example, when we got Kiricho's blooming, we did focus on the weaknesses as well, because his blooming, it doesn't discriminate, so he had to make that impenetrable fortress to protect his family while he activated against Momo. But yeah, it goes on and says, hard muscles are stiff, robbing techniques of precision. Hard bones are brittle bones, and hard blood vessels are prone to crack under extensive pressure. So basically, the more hardening Tao exerts, the more damaging it does to his body, because it's hardening up his body, not just his skin, but also his entire body gets harder as well. And of course, bones are very brittle, so if they get hardened too much, they can crack under pressure, like Momo says. That very nice that they actually touched on that and actually discovering, like, yes, even though hardening is a very offensive defensive ability, it does have serious ramifications for your body, because your whole body is basically being made as hard as I would say, like, actually, that's something we will have to I will have to find out at some point, like, how strong is Tao's hardening? Like, what's the upper limit to it? It's like if it's stronger than steel or corundum or titanium. Like, that's something I would love to know. So Momo goes on and says, in order to acquire true strength, you have to master the hardening's complementary side, and that is softening. So I guess it's hardening for the blooming, and then true spring blooming is like hardening, softening. So yeah, makes sense that the opposite of hardening would be softening. Kind of like when you have like sort of like concrete or cement, or even with something like glassmaking, like you get the soft area before it actually gets hardened up. So nice that they're actually making comparison, like hardening and softening are two polar opposites, but actually complement each other. Because you have to soften concrete, you have to harden. I guess you harden concrete and then soften it, or is it the other way around? I don't know, but they do complement each other. As Momo goes on and says, it's only by mastering both sides of the coin that a blooming will finally be complete, and that is true spring blooming. So this again begs the question of, like, what is the opposite side of void? Like, is it like resurrection, or like you go into the void, or is it? Yeah, it might be, like, because it would be. They touched upon this in Red Dwarf, because Void is essentially a black hole, but in Red Dwarf they had a white hole, so a black hole would suck time out of the universe, and a white hole would return it. So, like, basically events would repeat. So I guess the complete opposite of Void, like the opposite side of the coin, would be something like resurrection or something, or beyond the void, something like that. But I would like to think, like, when Kiricho uses his void blooming, it erases things from his sisters, but when he uses the true spring blooming of it, he can reconstruct anything that his void has touched, but have it to be on their side or something like that. I guess that's kind of the ability we'll be going with there. But I do like that. Like, we get like a concrete explanation of like how the power system operates. Like, okay, you've got one side of the blooming. Now you need the other side of the true spring blooming to fully operate your powers. So it is an extension, kind of like the Bonkai, but at the same time, it's gotta be like the antithesis. That's it. It's gotta be the antithesis to what your blooming actually is for it to be the true spring blooming. So what would be like the antithesis to void? What would be the antithesis to the magnesium that Fruitabelle has? What would be the antithesis to something like adaptability. Like what? Actually, that's the question. So I'll bring up all the bloomings now so that we can actually go through them. So blooming Yozakura. Yeah. So again, like I said, very interesting that we're getting some lore into that the blooming. But come on. All right. So yeah. All right, so we have passages. So, what is the antithesis to Band's passages? I guess ceiling, like where you can pass through objects, but is true spring blooming will be able to seal things. Unable to get. So what? So again, what's the antithesis to magnetium? What's the antithesis to destroy? Assimilation, annihilation, adaptation, regeneration, dreams, and void. Like, what's the true spring blooming of? Well, actually, the true spring blooming of dreams would be nightmares, since the antithesis to dreams would be nightmares. So, if Momo is still alive in the series and he comes back and still as an antagonist in the series and he has true spring blooming, what nightmares will we be able to endure? That is something that I would love to see. But anyway, he goes on and says like, oh, my body is suffered with somnium, circulating every cells of so so this is Tao going on about this. So my body is suffused with somnia, circulating into every corner of every cell in my body, bringing out both hardening and softening, solid yet giving, strong yet flexible. Its states far beyond regular blooming, and even a single blow will be the hardest blow ever. So basically, combining a soft blow with a hard blow to give a devastating Ogi cherry blossom fangs. So, but not really a fang, more like just like the biggest falcon punch you can ever give. So it would have made more sense. I'm gonna put my phone down here. It would have made more sense if Ty was like charging up his true spring blooming and just being like Ogida cherry spring fangs and just using the punch like a fangs punch. But no, he just used a regular punch, which is not bad, but come on, Ty, you could do better than that. As he basically decks Ryu, and Ryu cannot take this. So this is the point where he actually falls to his knees. Like, this was too much for him. Even though Ryu is strong and he uses his muscles to basically become like a brick tank, this was the one attack that basically dropped him. So Tao has won this fight, fair and square, but thankfully he hasn't killed Ryu, so that Ryu can actually learn the lesson that everyone's been trying to teach him throughout the course of the last few chapters, where he goes, as he goes, what a gag. Special scoop. This is the first eye. So he's doing it like, what's up? Yeah, special scoop. What is this? First eye, as he drops his notebook, and Tao is there to actually grab him, and everyone is just like, it's stunned by this because of the fact that Ryu, the editor-in-chief of the magazine, finally took a knee, finally took an L, which, my God, this was something I think we should have talked about when we did our biggest L's in anime and manga, or biggest L's in fiction video. But I feel like this is something we'll come back to when we do the Mission Yozakura video, because I want to talk about this, because Ryo has been like building himself up to be like one of the strongest characters in the series. I mean, Creature is always going to be the strongest character. I feel like that's a given fact. Oh my God, again, I'm going off of this notion here that Kai might have some sort of secret ability, but would he have like an elevation of that ability, like the True Spring Blooming? That's something I generally do want to see. But yeah, they go on and say like Ryu took the L. This is something that they've never seen before. As Tao apologized to him as he's deactivating his True Spring Blooming and saying, I'm still not great at controlling it. So again, pretty much confirming my theory of last chapter that even though Tao has gotten the True Spring Blooming, he's still a little bit shaky with it, which is fine because it's probably the first time he's ever had to use it against a major opponent in the 5 years that he's been mastering this. And I feel like that's going to be a case for all the Yozakuras. But it's going to be, even though they've mastered it, they're going to be a little bit shaky with it, and some going to be more than others. So I can imagine that that's something that's going to be touched upon when we get into the later portions of the series and in the later portions of next year's batch of chapters. But he goes on and says, I'll hope you forgive me for doing this, but I just had to stop you. This whole time you haven't been acting like yourself. Despite that, I still notice the kind looks you would occasionally give to Katana. They're too familiar for me to not realize that and that makes sense because Tao's become a dad himself, so he knows the looks of like, okay, yeah, this is something that you've been hiding, and even though you're calling yourself fake, no, I know a fake when I see it, and this is definitely not the looks of a fake. As he goes on and says, it's the kind of expression mutes me as when she's watching over the kids. And Katana, you just get a panel of Katana just being stomach. It says Ryu, all the emotions are obviously pouring out on him at this point, and he's probably overcoming with so many emotions right now. As Tao goes on and says, I haven't been a parent for long. I can't say I understand how deep your feelings go, but I do know the look in your eyes was the real thing. So like I said, Tao's like, no, Ryu, you say you are fake, but you are not. You really do care about this girl, and you want to love and protect her, even though your mind is saying, no, I'm a fake, in your heart, you know where your loyalty lies. Your loyalty lies to Katana, and making sure that Takami's sacrifice does not go in vain. Like, I imagine that if Takami ever came back as like a ghost or a visage, he'd probably be smacking Ryu up the arse and being like, what are you doing, man? Yes, I died, but I died protecting you and my daughter, and I entrusted you to her, and I want you to make her happy, but also to remember that no matter what, you're the I may be her dad, I may be her birth dad, but you are her dad. You are Papa Rio, and you've got to take care of her. My work as the dad is over, and I entrusted to you, so you've got to be the dad. You've got to be the responsible adult here and figure out, like, okay, what is she really feeling right now? Does she really want to go through with this? Like, that's probably something that Takami would say if he ever came back as a visage. Ryu, Tao goes on and says, you're still convinced you're somehow a fake. Today's the blessed day when... as we get Ryu flashing back to when he was saying like, oh, this is the day when my blessed daughter finally gets her real family, but Tao is having none of this. Like I just said when they're giving the description of Takami, is like, stop calling yourself a fake because you aren't. You are her family. Takami entrusted you to her, so you are her family. As Ryu starts to become overgrown with emotions, as he basically admits to Tao like, yeah, you surprise me. I don't take you for such a terrible husband. I mean, really, comparing your lovely wife to someone as terrible as me. But then we start getting flashbacks of when subtle but really effective flashback where Katana first started calling Ryu by his first name, just like Ryu, but then he became Papa Ryu and then Papa. So over time, slowly, Katana was like, probably like, yeah, Takami may be my birth father, but he's no longer with us. He's entrusted me to you, and it doesn't matter where I was born. You are my family now, in the same way that the Yozakuras, even though Tai wasn't born into them, he married into them, they've become essentially his family now, looking out through thick and thin, through all the crazy antics they've gone through. It's the same way with Ryu and Katana, as Ryu goes on and says, you're easy enough to be my son. How you grown up to such a big into such a big man. I've lost, and that's where chapter ends. So really, really awesome 200 chapter, getting more lore with the blooming, more backstory with Ryo and finding out what his relationship with Takumi truly meant to him. And finally getting the end of the fight where Ryo finally comes to terms with the fact of like, yes, I'm not a fraud. Katana thinks me as her father. I've got to now be the father that she can be. So, really well done chapter and a great ending to this part of the story. Now, the question is that after this point, are we going to get Taiyo and Shinzo giving the stamps to Hirofumi and Alpha? We now need to find out all the true spring brewers of the Yozakuras. Like I said, that's something that will need to go on. And where does this lead us with the final task of getting Mutsumi and Frutabus stamps? Because this has gone on for not as long as the stuff with Nanano, but definitely a considerable amount of time. This whole Shinzo's wedding arc, but it'll remain to be seen how many chances we are actually gonna get before we actually get to the point of like, yeah, all the stamps have been collected. So I'm really glad where the series has actually gone at this point, and how we're getting some development from the side characters, because that's been a major problem with the with Mission Yozakura for a lot of people. Like, none of the side characters do get development, but we got a ton of development for Ryo in this like little mini Shinzo wedding arc. So commend the series for that. But anyway, guys, what did you think of this? What did you think of this chapter? Let me know. Like, subscribe, comment, all that jazz. And this will be Lasherluke signing off. Later, guys.